Body, and I've just pressed the record button. I am now going to pass it over to JE to talk about the interpretation channels and language justice, and then it'll come back to me, and the presentation with Mr. Prang, LA Counter Assessor, will start in a few minutes.
Bienvenidos. Vamos a empezar con la orientación acerca de justicia del lenguaje con Jen Eliana y luego vamos a seguir con la presentación del asesor Jeffrey Prang en unos momentitos. Bienvenidos, soy Jen Eliana. Estoy aquí hoy con mis cointérpretes para interpretar entre inglés, español y lenguaje de señas estadounidense, trabajando con un marco que se llama la justicia del lenguaje.
Welcome. I'm Jenna Liana, and I'm here today with my co-interpreters to interpret between English, Spanish, and ASL, working within a framework called language justice.
La justicia del lenguaje incluye el compromiso de asegurarnos de que todas las personas puedan participar en la conversación y un respeto para los derechos lingüísticos de todas las comunidades.
Language justice includes the commitment to ensuring that all people can participate in the conversation and a respect for the linguistic rights of all communities.
Para acceder a los subtítulos en inglés, haga clic en el enlace que encontrará en el chat. Por favor, avísenos si necesita apoyo en acceder al enlace. Y un aviso, esta sesión está siendo grabada.
To access captions in English, follow the link you'll find in the chat. Please let us know if you need support accessing that link. And a note, this session is being recorded.
La presentación de hoy tomará lugar en inglés y durante la sesión de preguntas y respuestas usaremos inglés, español y el lenguaje de señas estadounidense activamente. Las personas que prefieren escuchar en español o inglés podrán escoger su canal de idioma en unos pocos momentos.
Today's presentation will take place in English, and during the Q&A session, we'll actively use English, Spanish, and ASL. People who prefer to listen in Spanish or English will be able to select their language channel in a couple of moments.
Hoy estaremos usando la función de interpretación de Zoom que ya está activada. Verá un icono del mundo o la palabra más, more en inglés, en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Pulse en más y verá un menú que incluye la opción de interpretación de idiomas o Language Interpretation en inglés. Para escuchar la interpretación, pulse el icono del mundo o interpretación de idiomas. A continuación, elija su canal de idioma. Si está en un teléfono o tableta, haga clic en Listo. Si no puede escuchar la intérprete en su canal, por favor pida ayuda en el chat o levante la mano.
Today we will be using the Zoom interpreting function, which has already been activated. You will see either a globe icon or the word more at the bottom of your screen. Click the globe or more, and you will see a menu that includes an option called Language Interpretation. To listen to the interpreting, click the globe icon or Language Interpretation. Then choose your language channel. If you are using a phone or tablet, click Done. If you can't hear the interpreter on your channel, please ask for help in the chat or raise your hand.
Ahora vamos a comenzar la interpretación simultánea para hacer una prueba de la función de interpretación. Por favor, elija su canal de idioma si prefiere escuchar la interpretación en inglés o español.
Now we will start simultaneous interpreting to test the interpreting function. Please choose your language channel if you want to hear the interpreting in English or Spanish.
First, I'm going to speak a little bit in English. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear the interpreter on the Spanish channel. Y ahora voy a hablar un poco en español.
And now I'll speak a bit in Spanish, so please give me a thumbs up if you can hear the interpreter in the English channel. And I'm going to wait for Steph or someone to give me a cue. Thank you. We will be using simultaneous interpretation for the rest of this announcement. Now, everyone who prefers to participate in either English or Spanish should be on a language channel. For those who speak both English and Spanish, you can leave the interpretation function off or select a language channel. If you cannot hear the interpreter, please use the chat box to ask for help. It is everyone's responsibility to support equitable communication in a multilingual space. We would like to share a few communication reminders. If you're using a language channel, please speak in that language. Click Mute Original Audio if you prefer not to hear the original speaker's voice. Please mute your mic when you are not speaking.
Hable a un ritmo moderado y haga pausas con
Speak at a moderate pace and pause often.
Por favor, diga su nombre antes de
Please say your name before you
Solamente
speak.
una persona debe hablar a la
Only
vez.
one person should speak at a time, and we may use the chat box to ask for help.
Las personas que entienden español
For folks who understand Spanish, you'll have noticed that we use the E ending instead of the traditional A or O ending. For example, when we said bienvenides or welcome as we began. This is not a pronunciation error, but an intentional effort to create inclusive spaces and avoid making assumptions about gender. We want to acknowledge all the languages used by everyone here, including the languages of all indigenous people and the unceded lands each of us inhabits. We welcome the use of languages other than those we're interpreting today. Please self-interpret if you do so. Thank you to the organizers of this space for making it possible for us to be here. We are so pleased to be able to support this conversation since we feel strong solidarity with the work you do.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Stephanie Carroll. I'm the Directing Attorney with the Consumer Rights and Economic Justice team here at Public Counsel.
Sorry to interrupt. We have not spotlighted the ASL interpreter. Perfect, thank you.
Just bear with me, folks. Thank you. This series of webinars is brought to you by a collaborative of legal services organisations, including Tzedek, the East LA Community Corporation, Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, the National Housing Law Project, Neighbourhood Legal Services of LA, One Justice, and Public Counsel. And tonight is the second webinar in our Homeowner series focused on property tax. As you know, the session is being recorded in English and Spanish, and it will be made available on our website and those of our partners. Please let us know if there's another language that you or your community needs. When we're sharing screens, you will be able to see the slides and the presenter slide side by side. You can use the white tab in the middle of the screen as a slider to shift the size of the screen share or the speakers. Public Counsel is committed to language justice and accessibility, and we're constantly trying to improve our practices. Please bear with us if there are any delays or technical glitches. If you have access needs that we are not currently meeting, please let us know. After the presentation, we will do our best to answer any questions there are. Please use the chat box or the Q&A section, or if you need to sign or speak your question, please raise your hand and we will give you microphone or video access. Please note that this is a Know Your Rights presentation and is not intended to be legal advice. If you have a legal problem, you should still consult with an attorney. I am honoured to introduce to you our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Jeff Prang, the Los Angeles County Assessor. Mr. Prang was elected in 2014 as the 27th Assessor for the County of Los Angeles, and he was re-elected in 2018 and 2022.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Sorry, Mr. Prang. I'm still doing your bio. I was just waiting to pause for the ASL interpreter. Raised in Warren, Michigan, Assessor Prang is a graduate of Michigan State University. After graduation, Mr. Prang relocated to California, where he served nearly 18 years as a council member for the city of West Hollywood, including 4 terms as mayor, among many other positions in the public sector. Upon taking office in 2014, as the Los Angeles County Assessor, Mr. Prang implemented sweeping reforms to ensure the strictest ethical guidelines rooted in fairness, accuracy, and integrity would be adhered to in his office. Assessor Prang is a State Board of Equalization licensed appraiser and administers the largest office of his kind in the nation with 1,400 employees that provides a foundation for a property tax system that generates $24 billion annually. Mr. Prang is joined tonight by his colleagues who will be available for the Q&A, Robert Azazaki, Assistant Chief Constituency Services, and Frank Diaz Jr., Chief Appraiser for the Assessor's East District Office. Over to you now, Mr. Prang.
Thank you very much. My apologies for jumping the gun. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this evening. I thank you, staff and public counsels. We've had the opportunity over the course of my career as assessor to partner with public counsel, and I'm happy to be able to be here to share this important information with your viewers. And I apologize to the viewers if my eyes are doing odd things. I have to look over to make sure that we're keeping up with the communications for the visually impaired. So first of all, my team and I are committed to supporting our community through these very challenging times that we've all experienced with the recent fires by offering property tax relief programs that are tailored to help those who have been impacted by significant losses, in this case fires, but it also broadly impacts those who've been impacted by floods, earthquakes, etc. Over the last few weeks, my team and I have been offering direct assistance to residents at the official FEMA disaster centers throughout the county. We've been attending numerous town halls, hosting webinars, and other community events to bring information directly to the public. The local disaster centers are still operational, and I'll share the center details, including those locations, a little bit toward the end of my presentation, should you or anyone you know needs in-person assistance. We also have resources available on our website. You can subscribe to our newsletters or to our social media channels to get the most up-to-date information and resources. That being said, the 2 primary programs that my office hosts to help property owners who are affected by wildfires are, number 1, something we call the Misfortune and Calamity. The Misfortune and Calamity Relief Program helps homeowners qualify to have their home's value reassessed at a lower value due to a natural disasters. In order to qualify for this program, the damage to your home must exceed $10,000, and you must file a claim within 12 months of the date of the incident. With this program, wildfire victims will see their property tax bills lowered until they begin to rebuild or replace their homes. Additionally, thanks to our coordination with the County Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, applicants from the recent wildfires who do not pay their taxes through an impound account also qualify to have their property taxes deferred until the review of the disaster relief claim is completed by my office. Homeowners with an impound account should contact their mortgage lenders for guidance on any programs that may assist with affected customers. And I believe a lot of the major lending institutions are doing that. The other program to help fire victims is something we call a decline in value. So for those homeowners whose properties were not physically damaged, but whose market value has dropped significantly due to the disaster, and the reason for the market drop would be because there may be extensive smoke damage, because of contaminants in the properties around them. It may be unhealthy to live there. It may be that utilities are out of commission for a very long time, and that may cause the current market value of the home to drop. This program allows for a temporary reduction in the assessed value when the current market value of the property falls below its assessed value. That's a little bit complicated. Let me explain that. When you purchase your property, your purchase price, which is usually market value, becomes your assessed value, and that stays stable throughout your ownership of the property, except for a modest 2% annual adjustment. Your market value may grow. That's what you could sell the home at. Your market value will grow much faster than your assessed value. So there is a decline in value when that current market value falls below your assessed value. Unfortunately, under current law, property owners impacted by this year's wildfires may need to wait until next year to apply for a decline in value because the fires took place after January 1st, which is the day that we do a snapshot of property values for the year. Although I am working with state leaders in Sacramento to explore solutions that will allow us to apply this benefit to property owners in the current tax year. I did mention previously about the opportunity to defer your property taxes, and I mentioned how it normally works with a misfortune calamity, but supplementally, Governor Newsom signed an executive order that allows property tax deferrals until April of next year, 2026, for wildfire affected homeowners. And it affects a number of qualified zip codes, which are posted on our website, on the governor's website. Affected homeowners and businesses may also qualify for an extension on their state and federal filing tax deadlines until October of this year. In LA County, if you filed a misfortune calamity claim and pay property taxes directly to the tax collector, again, we recommend that you not pay your April installment of your property tax bill. Once you file your claim, that also serves as a formal request for a property tax deferral. I did want to assure property owners, though, that if your property was damaged or destroyed in the earthquake, you don't have to, we're going to reassess it with or without an application. We do recommend that you file an application because that gives us your contact information. It allows us to record things much more precisely in the system, but we're going to be lowering those assessments one way or another. Going forward, if your claim is approved, the auditor controller will recalculate your property tax obligations, and the treasurer will issue a new adjusted tax bill. And if you've already paid both installments of your property tax bill, you will get a refund after we've done that calculation.
Assessor Prang, can you slow down a little bit for us, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
I'll let her catch up for a moment. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can access this property tax relief. We've tried to streamline the process to make it as easy as possible. One, you can print a form online and mail it to us at 500 West Temple Street. You can email a photo of your completed form and supporting documents to relief@assessor.lacounty.gov. And you can also submit an application through our website on your computer, which is assessor.lacounty.gov/disaster. Or you could also do that from your smartphone. So some of the information that we'll need, we need you to provide us details about the damage to the property and the date of the incident. In the case of these fires, most of them happened on around the 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th of January. If you have any supporting documents, such as photos or insurance claims from your adjuster, these are helpful as well. And then you can just review your submission and sign it electronically, and you'll get a confirmation once it's been submitted. So there's a lot of misinformation about what we do and what we don't do. If your property is damaged or destroyed, when you repair it or replace it, you are not going to be reassessed. We're going to lower your assessment to reflect the damage or the destruction. And when you rebuild it, we will simply restore your previous tax rate. The lower assessed value will stay until your property has been rebuilt. One of the benefits in this type of major disaster is you can build up to 120% of what was previously on your property without being reassessed. It'll be restored to your previous tax base. There's a graphic on your screen that kind of visualizes the misfortune and calamity programs impact on assessed value. That may be a little bit complicated, but I did want to provide you with a visual. One of the things that we're all very concerned about in government is those nefarious entities who are going to attempt to take advantage of people who've experienced loss through scams or other types of problematic programs. One of the ones we're on the lookout for are companies. They may be legitimate companies that will ask you to pay them a fee in order to file claims on your behalf, such as a misfortune, calamity, or a decline in value. All of these services, just like most government services, are done for free. You don't need to pay anybody. If they were able to provide some additional value with your application, if they had an insight track to getting it processed faster and more complete and generously, then maybe it'd be worthwhile, but they can't. All they will do is fill out the form for you and mail it. Something you can do on your own. A lot of these companies charge up to a couple $100 to do this, and they provide no value whatsoever. Don't pay anybody to file any application for you. And if you do get a solicitation and you want to call us, we'll confirm it and confirm to you that's what it is that you're receiving. And we may, depending on how they do it, we may report them to the law enforcement authorities. So going forward, it is necessary in some cases for one of our appraisers to go to physically to inspect the property. Our appraisers carry an official County of Los Angeles photo identification. You should not admit any person claiming to work for the assessor if they've not shown you their official county identification. And be aware of imposters. There's a few other things you can do to enhance your access to my office. You can sign up for our homeowner alert service and e-notification. On our website, you can register your email address with your property. And anytime something is recorded against your property, you'll get an email notice within 24 hours. And this is important because if somebody you're maybe familiar that there's a lot of fraud being perpetrated against deeds and titles. And in the past, normally you would get a letter in the mail from the registrar or recorder within 30 or 45 days confirming something's been recorded. But in the case of fraud, 45 days may be too late. But so this email service will notify you within 48 hours. And we will put up on the screen a QR code that will take you directly to the page where you can sign up for the homeowner alert. You can also set up a personal profile with your property on our website that will allow you to take care of a lot of business online without having to come to our office or send things through the mail. And finally, the LA County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs has a lot of important information on its website regarding real estate fraud measures that you can take to protect yourself from post-disaster scams. So in times of disaster, there's a lot of things that property owners have to do to put things back in order. It can be very complicated. There's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different departments that do different things. But we're doing the best we can do to untangle the complexity, to help hold your hand through the process, answer your questions, and ensure that you get the relief that you're entitled to. So we're trying to be where the public is. We're at the disaster sites. We're online. We're on social media. We're available by phone. Please reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. But thank you very much. That concludes my presentation, and I'll look forward to questions later in the forum.
Thank you so much, Assessor Prang. So we have a manageable number of attendees. So if anybody wants to raise their hand, we can get folks on camera. And if everyone is too shy, I have a question, but
Okay.
I will let the audience jump in first and I see a couple of legal services folks on there. So again, if you've had any questions from clients please also bring those to the assessor, because this is recorded and we'd like to get as much information out there as possible. Okay, I have two questions. So firstly, the e-notification system, that sounds fantastic. Is that something that has been available for a while, and is it going to continue being available, or is it just specifically for a set period?
It is a new program that we've launched in the last 12 months. It will continue on indefinitely. We are hoping that is combined with our online registration gives us much more capacity to interact with property owners.
Yes, I think it's a great thing. It's the first time I've heard of it, so we will definitely spread the words to our clients because, as you know, we often get clients coming to us with tangled title or stolen title disputes, and so this will be a great thing for people to be able to register and get ahead of any of those types of scams that we see.
We're working hard to try to promote the program, but as you may imagine, the assessor is not the most glamorous of elected offices, so we have a little hard time getting major media to pay attention to us.
Well, I'll be sure if I'm in any media interviews about title, I will be sure to mention it. My second question goes to the misfortune and calamity process. So I understand that the property value will be reassessed, but also part of your property tax is the land value. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit more to that. I think it's probably clear to say that right now, we don't know what the land values are going to be in those areas. And it's possible that they may go down. And so if you could speak to that process and how the land value aspect might be brought into account at some point.
So this is very complicated. So I'll do my best to try to explain it as easily as possible. So there's property. When we determine the value of property, we attribute a portion of it to the land and a portion of it to the building. Now, in the fire damage properties in LA County, on average, 68% of the value of all property was attributed to the land, with 32% attributed to the buildings. So under misfortune and calamity, that only allows us to reduce your value for damaged improvements, buildings. So if you, let's say for sake of ease, you had $1 million house and $500,000 was in the land and $500,000 was in the house is destroyed. We're going to zero out the improvement value on your house. And so the only thing you would be assessed on is the land at $500,000. Now that land could be damaged. It could experience a decline in value. One, because of the contaminants on the land, because of the degraded environment in the neighborhood. It could be because of the maybe a lack of desirability to rebuild because it's too close to a fire area. We're going to be looking at the land to see if it has lost value. And we will apply a decline in value where appropriate. Now, it gets even more complicated because your ability to have a decline in value on the land depends on when you bought it. If you bought the property back in 1990, property has appreciated a great deal. So your land may be worth less today than it was on January 1st, but it's probably worth a lot more than it was in 1990 when you bought the property. And for a decline in value on the land, as I stated earlier, the current market value must be lower than the assessed value. And the longer period of time that has passed since you bought the property, the lower that assessed value is going to be. And so the people who will get who are able to qualify for a reduction in value on the land will be those who purchased their properties most recently. The other challenge with applying a decline in value, as I referenced, is how the system works when we value a property. We value property on what's called the lien date, and the lien date is January 1st. It's a snapshot of what your property is worth on that day, and we do it once a year. And we did that on January 1st of 2025. The damage due to the fires occurred starting on the 7th of January. And under normal circumstances, we would not be able to apply that decline until next year's tax roll. We are asking the legislature to allow us to flexibility in applying that lien date so that we can do a decline in value on the land or other improvements for the current tax year.
Thank you very much. And
I got that right. Robert, did I get that right?
Yes, all correct, Assessor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assessor. I can say that I staff one of the disaster recovery centres, and I was so pleased to see your office there, as were my parents-in-law who lost their house in the fire. And I know that they were very appreciative of all the resources there. And my father-in-law was especially concerned about property tax. So I was glad that you folks were there for him. So thank you personally from me. Maybe I can invite Robert or Frank. I don't know if there are particular frequently asked questions that you've had recently that you might want to talk about. But I invite you to do so if you have anything that you'd like to share now.
We do have a couple.
Go ahead.
All right. So constituents have been wondering if they can file an M&C claim when they're in the middle of a Prop 19 process. So will the Prop 19 now allow them to transfer the M&C value to their new property? Some property owners indicate they are not sure if they're going to rebuild their homes. So according to the State Board of Equalization letters to assessors, Article 13 of the California Constitution regarding Prop 19, if the full cash value of the replacement primary residence at the time of the purchase or the completion of new construction is equal or less than the full cash value of the original residence just before the date of the disaster, then the adjusted base year value of the original primary residence prior to the disaster, along with any applicable inflationary adjustments, may be transferred to the replacement primary residence.
Frank, can I just pause you for a moment? Could I ask you to just go through that again a little bit more slowly for our interpreter,
Sure.
please?
Frank, maybe you can translate that a little bit. I don't think people need to know what the code sections are. Just give them information of how it basically works.
So basically, the question is: they're in the middle of a proposition that allows them to move their base value to another part.
Oh, sorry, Frank. We're just switching over our interpreters. Forgive me.
No problem.
Oh.
Ready? All right. So basically, folks they're a little concerned about the M&C claim while they're already in the process. Maybe that was started before the fire. Proposition that allows them to transfer the base value to another part of the county or the state, and they're just wondering if the misfortune and calamity application will allow them to transfer the original base value as originally was intended. So according to interpretation of the Prop 19, they can do that even though they were in the middle of the process of filing a proposition to move that. So it'll just be based on the value of the residence before the fire, and that's the actual fair market value, the value you could get for the home in the market, and that can be moved, and that would apply your base value to that new residence. Another question that came about at the disaster recovery centers is if a taxpayer was delinquent on paying the first installment and had the home destroyed by the fire after that, would they be able to defer the payment of the first installment as well as the second? So we posed this question to our friends at the tax collector, and they came up with, unfortunately, the first installment is not protected or deferred, and they would still need to pay the taxes with a 10% penalty since it wasn't paid on time. Another question is, like Assessor Prang mentioned, does M&C apply to land value? And absolutely, yes, it does. Many believe that the M&C tax laws do not allow for adjustments to land, this is not true. Although it is less frequent, if it is appropriate to adjust land because the land has suffered value loss due to a misfortunate calamity, then the Revenue and Taxation Code allows us to adjust it. So those are some of our most frequent questions.
Thank you so much, Frank. I really appreciate that. Robert, is there anything that you would like to add?
Sure. Actually, I'd like to touch on something that the assessor mentioned earlier in his presentation, just to reiterate. At this point in time, there's probably a lot of homeowners who are beginning to focus their attentions towards rebuilding and what can they rebuild without jeopardizing their tax base. The assessor mentioned one provision regarding the rebuilding and reassessment. It's sometimes referred to the 120% rule, but that it's something that can be misinterpreted. So at our resource centers, we have been trying to explain that although it's described as the 120% rule, it essentially means that property owners whose homes have been destroyed by a natural disaster, they can rebuild a replacement residence that is substantially equivalent to the property that was destroyed. So, for example, if you had a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, and you rebuilt that same structure, you would not be subject to reassessment. Like the assessor said, we would reinstate your old tax base when you completed construction. The confusion, I think, at sometimes occurs when people think I can build 120% of the square footage that was destroyed. So that may land some people in hot water if they were to interpret it that way. So the best way to describe it, as our office understands it, is to say you can build the substantial equivalent of what was there previously. So just wanted to clarify that because, again, when we go through that quickly, sometimes it's misunderstood.
Yeah, one of the things that to add on to that is we value the original property as it was the day before the fire. That's your fair market value, not your assessed value. Mm-hmm. So in these disasters, sometimes it could take years to rebuild the property. So the 120% of fair market value rule basically allows for that thing that we all knew about the last few years, inflation. And also remember, the original house may have been built in the 30s, 40s, or 50s, and the code is different for rebuilding. So some of that will be eaten up by that 120% as well. That was a good point, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. Yeah, I think there's so many thorny issues, especially around rebuilding, and I really appreciate that clarity. All right, folks, it's a last chance for any questions.
If not, please write down our contact information on the screen and our phone number, and we'll be happy to, if something comes to you later on, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much. And Ian, can I ask you to go to the next slide in a minute? Thank you. I just wanted to remind folks of the organizations involved in the collaborative, and highlighted there are the organizations who worked on the presentation tonight. Most importantly, the LA County Assessor's Office. Thank you so much, Mr. Prang, for being here. I really appreciate it. And to your team, you have been wonderful. If there is any feedback that folks want to give, please contact, and I've just noticed a typo, please contact G Guidetti. I'm going to put it in the chat. So it should have an extra G on there. So G Guidetti, GGUIDETTI @publiccounsel.org. So if you have any feedback, please send that to us. And also please check out our website. We have lots of resources related to the fire, and links to the recordings for last week, which included a session on mortgages and important information about what people should continue to pay their mortgages with. Spoiler alert, the answer is yes, you should continue to pay your mortgage. But also we did a session on debt collection. Up tomorrow is a session on bankruptcy. And then next week in our homeowner series, we have a session about homeowner associations, followed by the consumer session on Thursdays, which will relate to student loans. So once again, thank you everyone. Thank you especially to our language justice team for making sure that everyone can receive this information. It will be on our website and that of our partners, and so it will be accessible for a good while into the future. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you.